For centuries, the vampire and the werewolf have been locked in an eternal war. But what ignited this ancient feud? Was it a betrayal, an ancient curse, or something far more sinister? Prepare to uncover the true origins of their bloodshed and discover why these iconic creatures are destined to be enemies forever. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Nightforge, where we dive deep into the shadows of mythology and folklore. Today we're re-sinking our teeth into one of the most legendary rivalries of all time, vampires versus werewolves. From blockbuster movies to classic literature, their conflict is a cornerstone of supernatural storytelling. But have you ever wondered where it all began? Let's peel back the layers of myth and legend to find out. To truly understand this epic feud, we need to travel back to a time before they were sworn enemies. Believe it or not, in some of the oldest tales, vampires and werewolves weren't necessarily at each other's throats. In fact, their paths rarely crossed. Vampires were often seen as aristocratic, manipulative beings, preying on humanity from the shadows of high society. They were creatures of cold, calculating intellect and eternal stillness. Werewolves, on the other hand, were symbols of raw, untamable nature. Their stories were tied to the wild, to the forests, and to the primal rage that lies dormant within humanity. They represented a loss of control, a surrender to the beast within, driven by the cycles of the moon. So, initially, they occupied very different spheres of the supernatural world. One was a predator of the city, the other a terror of the countryside. Their hunting grounds and methods were so distinct that direct conflict wasn't a given. So what changed? Where did this intense hatred come from? The modern concept of the vampire-werewolf war is largely a product of 20th century fiction and cinema. One of the most influential examples is the Underworld film series. Here, the rivalry isn't just a simple case of good versus evil. It's a deeply personal and historical conflict rooted in betrayal. In this universe, werewolves, or lycans, were originally enslaved by the vampire aristocracy. They were used as daytime guardians for the sleeping vampires. The feud ignited when a vampire noble's daughter fell in love with a lycan slave. Their forbidden romance and the subsequent brutal retaliation from the vampire leadership sparked a rebellion that has raged for centuries. This narrative frames the conflict not just as a monster mash, but as a class struggle, a war for freedom against oppression. It gave their rivalry a compelling backstory full of tragedy, love, and betrayal, which has resonated deeply with audiences. Another fascinating take comes from the Vampire Diaries universe. Here, the origin is tied to a powerful curse. The original vampires and werewolves were created by magic to protect their families, but this power came at a steep price. The curse that created vampires also gave them a weakness to werewolf bites, making werewolves one of the few things that could permanently destroy them. This biological antagonism makes their coexistence almost impossible. It's not about choice or historical grievances, it's about fundamental survival. One species is literally poison to the other. This creates a natural, ever-present tension where peace is a fragile, and often temporary, state. But if we dig even deeper beyond modern pop culture, we can find thematic reasons for their clash. Vampires and werewolves represent two opposing, yet interconnected, aspects of human nature. The vampire is often portrayed as the superego gone wrong, controlled, immortal, and detached from the warmth of human life. They represent a cold, predatory intelligence. The werewolf is the idea personified all impulse, rage, and raw physical power. They embody the wild, untamed passions we suppress. Seen this way, their battle is a symbolic representation of the eternal internal conflict within humanity itself. The struggle between our civilized, rational selves and our primal, instinctual urges. It's order versus chaos, intellect versus instinct, immortality versus a life burned brightly and fiercely. They are two sides of the same supernatural coin, and their clash is a dramatic externalization of a struggle that is deeply familiar to us all. Let's also consider their place in the supernatural hierarchy. Both vampires and werewolves are apex predators, sitting at the very top of the food chain, with humans often caught in the middle. When two apex predators occupy the same territory, conflict is inevitable. It's a battle for resources in this case, humanity and, for dominance. Neither is willing to bow to the other. The vampire sees the werewolf as a mindless beast, a filthy animal. The werewolf sees the vampire as an unnatural abomination, a walking corpse that defiles the natural order. This fundamental clash of ideologies, of their very being, makes peaceful coexistence a near impossibility. Some folkloric traditions also hint at a shared cursed origin. One of the most intriguing theories connects both creatures to the biblical figure of Cain. After killing his brother Abel, Cain was cursed by God to wander the earth. Some legends say this curse branched out. One line of his descendants became the vampires, cursed to thirst for blood. Another line became the werewolves, cursed to transform into savage beasts. In this version, they are not just enemies, but estranged and cursed relatives, two branches of the same blighted family tree. This adds a layer of tragic irony to their conflict. They are fighting a war that began with the first murder, destined to repeat the sins of their ancestor for all eternity. This idea of a shared origin, twisted by betrayal and curses, is perhaps the most powerful explanation for their endless war. It suggests they were once something else, perhaps even allies or brothers, before darkness corrupted their bloodlines. The story of Lycaon from Greek mythology, who was turned into a wolf by Zeus for his cruelty, and the vampire-like figures of ancient Rome, all point to origins rooted in divine punishment and human transgression. Over time, as these myths evolved and merged, it's easy to see how these two cursed beings would be pitted against each other. So, why are vampires and werewolves eternal enemies? It's a complex tapestry woven from many different threads. It's the modern storytelling of underworld that gave us a war of revolution and class. It's the magical curses of the Vampire Diaries that made them biologically incompatible. It's the symbolic conflict between our own inner demons or intellect versus our instinct. And it might even be a shared, tragic origin stemming from an ancient biblical sin. The truth is, there is no single answer. The vampire-werewolf feud is a powerful myth that has been shaped and reshaped over time, reflecting our own fears and fascinations, whether they are tragic lovers, cursed brothers, or simply two predators fighting for territory. Their war represents a fundamental conflict that continues to captivate our imagination. It's a reminder that even in the world of monsters, the most compelling battles are often the ones that mirror our own struggles with power, identity, and the darkness that lies within. What do you think is the true reason for their hatred? Is there a version of the story that we missed? Let us know your favorite vampire-werewolf origin story in the comments below. We love hearing your theories and insights. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the dark heart of mythology. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss an exploration into the unknown. Until next time, stay curious and watch out for what goes bump in the night.